Hi, I'm Paul Santinello, your host for today's program. Welcome to The Upside. Today is a special edition. We're doing a candidates forum for the special election on Tuesday, March 7th for the select board position that is vacant. Just so you know, there was two candidates running in this election. There was a runoff in early February. The two candidates were invited. Vineeth, one of the other candidates, could not make it, so we have Walter Gunn joining us today. Walter, welcome to the show, and I'm going to give you time to introduce yourself to the people.
Well, first, thank you, Paul, for having this forum today. I'm glad to be on this show and being taped to get this information out to our town residents and viewers. Again, my name is Walter Gunn. I've been a lifelong resident of the town of Long Meadow. Served in public service for the town and the region for 22 years plus. I started as an elected official in the Long Meadow Planning Board in 2001 and have served continuously five continuous terms, and in the early mid-2000s became a member of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission as a commissioner, and is currently the chairman of the executive committee. I again said I've lived here my whole life. My family grew up here. My wife moved here from New York. She is served in the past on the finance committee in the town of Long Meadow. My daughter, who's now out of town working, was a full-time student here for the Long Meadow. She is class of 2017 at Long Meadow High School, and I'm class of 1979.
Oh, you shouldn't really say too much about that kind of stuff. I'm teasing.
No, that's okay.
All right.
I'm proud of Long Meadow in the education.
Yeah, that's right.
It
was a good time to graduate from high school. So, drinking age was 18, 19, whatever it was.
Yeah. Yep.
Why are you running for select board?
Public service and experience have always been at my back to serve in the town. Recently, I did sell a business. I was an entrepreneur. I did not mention that earlier. I've been an entrepreneur and a small business owner here locally in East Long Meadow. And with that free time, I felt now I would like to step up and serve on a board that is very demanding to get the work done. I can say right now, it can take you 8 to 10 hours a week to prepare for a meeting. Select board meetings are long, and I have the time and the dedication now to get involved with the select board.
Okay, good. So, in the years that you were on the planning board, so obviously you've been involved in a lot in the what's gone on in town in the last 20 years.
Yep.
Literally. What do you see as the biggest needs that you think the town is facing, whether it's budget, infrastructure? What do you think that the town is going to be facing that you can lend a hand with?
All above. I think the biggest problem is the fiscal cliff, as we all know. And actually, I've been out canvassing voters in Long Meadow and residents, and shocked a lot of people don't know about Proposition 2.5. And for those out there listening to me today, 2.5 is a ceiling. It's a cap that was put on in 1980, and it was put on by the voters of Massachusetts. It was a referendum, and it did not allow a town to tax its residents for real estate and excise taxes, motor vehicle, for example, at a rate of $25 per thousand. We are near that now. This year, we're not in danger zone. We're not in danger zone, but we can talk about that later. Mm-hmm. But I think that's number one, is to have a hawkeye view of Proposition 2.5 and the ceiling Long Meadow is approaching. We're up there. We're there. So that's number one. Number two, well, infrastructure is interesting. I believe we are now, and we should face the reality of a new middle school. I can't talk to that now because we got a task force, and again, my campaign mantra is to say, listen, so we have people dedicated now to doing the task of identifying where and what the needs are of a new middle school, how to fund it, and I believe the select board at that point should be a guiding tool and provide resources if that is a necessary tool. But I believe the first step is to look at a new school. I was shocked by what happened at Glenbrook Middle School recently, graffiti, harmless, but it's scary. And the fact that this could happen is not nice and not cool. But the good news is I think we have some money in the budget in the capital planning maybe to put in higher security at some of the smaller, the elementary schools and the middle school. Roads, easy one. On the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I serve on what's called the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And what that is we are we dish out the money for highways in Western Massachusetts that's brought down from the feds and the states. So we have right now projects to get Converse Street fixed. It's programmed. So the last part of Converse Street from Long Meadow Street over to Laurel Street is programmed to be fixed. And we're also budgeted to completely repair Long Meadow Street from literally from, I think, maybe the whole length of Long Meadow, from the Springfield line, well, from Converse Street down to the state line. Next, speaking of roads, again, going around talking to people, people say, well, when are you going to repair Shaker Road? Again, Chapter 90 is our major source, right, Paul? And we've always begged for more Chapter 90 funds. And so they got to be used very resourcefully and to fix and keep our roads going. So those are, I think, the three major issues: is the school, the roads, and the budget.
One of the things I wanted to ask is, you own a business, and when you were in your business, for 20 years, what you did 20 years earlier, some things are core basics, right? Like everyday things that you do, but you had to have adapt to your client base and their needs and so forth. Do you see that that if the town needs any of that? I know the town manager's putting together like a communication. They're trying to come in with some information, gather information about how to communicate a little bit better. How do you think the town could do a little bit better than that, or do a little bit better with that, I should say, if you think we need to do better in terms of communications?
Well,
because as you said, you're running into people,
that
they need to understand tax rates and things like that, right? So.
Well, first of all, communication is probably not the right word. Communication is sort of a catch-all. He didn't communicate with me. He didn't do this properly. I think communication is trust. And it's an interesting way to look at it. If you don't communicate with someone, is it because of a lack of trust? Is it because they don't trust you? And I think that's the important part of communication, is to build trust. And again, that's one of my campaign things, is to listen. You're asking me questions, you're making comments, I listen. And again, that's my mantra, for the select board, is a simple, easy thing. Be prepared, show up, listen to your constituents, and make informed decisions.
Okay.
It worked for you.
For a while, yeah.
Okay. And so I would hope I can make it work for me too. But that's not communication, it's trust.
Okay. So let me ask you this question: what is because I think this is important. And, it's our preliminary election had less than 10% of the town voters, and that's a shame on you kind of thing, because we really need to get our vote, not you, to the people, because we need more than 10% of the vote. There's too many issues, important issues that are going on, like you said, financially, infrastructure-wise, things like that, to stay at home and not worry about it until the stuff is hitting the fan. Right? Where does your job experience of owning a business, of dealing with employees, of understanding the change in markets, how does that benefit, or how do you think that would benefit you on the board?
Well, first of all, curiosity. I have to say, the invention of the internet and Google I've wasted time and I've learned a lot of things, but I'm always curious about learning information on subjects. I'm really good at learning and then implementing. In business, for example, I was doing VisiCalc spreadsheets when they first came out in 1984. So I'm a spreadsheet wizard. I'm not going to argue with folks like Richard Foster and Mark Gould. They're really good at spreadsheets. Kings of the spreadsheet. Kings of the spreadsheet. But you know what? It's an important tool to have. My experience I had a retail. I had an industrial lumberyard, And lumber business is, as you know, is affected by everything from the cost of goods to employees. I've worked with employees, and I've worked with a lot of different people, and I've learned, it's funny, what's the Marine Corps expression? To adapt, persevere, and overcome. That's small business. And that kind of attitude, when you go to work every day and you go to a select board meeting on Monday night, that's a very good thing to remember. And so I've learned to adapt and persevere and overcome. And to be successful, that's what it takes. And that's what it takes to serve the town.
Okay. So let's fast forward. You're on
Sure.
the board. You see budgets coming up.
Okay.
You know, and I remember sitting in a budget meeting one year, and the person on the other side of the table was presenting their budget. The department, they talked about zero-based budgeting.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, didn't understand what the real concept is. And in government, and this happens in business too, right? We say we do zero-based budgeting, but we really don't. We just say, here's this year's, now here's next year's, and then we kind of overinflate things and then say, we're going to cut. So we took a cut. We didn't take a cut. We have an increase, right? So it's semantics at some point. But how do you navigate how do you think you would navigate the budget process? Obviously, the schools are the biggest part of the budget.
Okay.
They're a core service of our town, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have to protect certain departments that need to, because without them, DPW, fire, and police,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what everything else is there. So how do you see that happening? If there's something you disagree in the budget, how are you going to try to make a change on that, or how do you think you work with the rest of the board or town manager?
Well, it is funny because we've tried in this town, and the select board is specifically, and the finance committee, and the parties, the capital planning, everybody working together to do a budget. We've tried to never go to what we can do is go to 2.5%. So every year, if our budget was $100 last year, we can add another, $25 the next year. We've tried not to do that, and we have not done that. And so this year is rather interesting, and I'm just getting up to speed on this because I'm hearing a lot of different vibes about this. I've been told by the finance committee that we're okay this year, and we might be, because what's catching up, as you know, for those out there who don't know, property values are used in calculating our tax base, and they usually lag by a couple of years. And we're just getting now into what I call the COVID housing bubble burst, and that was an amazing run-up in property values in Long Meadow. So that puts a little bit of a pad on it, but there is no excuse not to do what I call a level descent. Folks, everybody knows when you want to land on an airplane at an airport, you don't want the pilot to drop out 20,000 feet and hit the runway. That's how I picture this whole system of our budget, is that we need to put on the brakes and start slowing down the descent to a crash, which we call it the fiscal ceiling. It could be a crashing into the runway. And so what bothers me this year, and what I'm hearing is, and I might be wrong, so don't fact check me on this, but I think I hear schools are running around 3.5% budget increase. So, and then the finance committee is happy with, I think, a 2.5% increase, so going right to the max. So if I do the math correctly, I think the schools are what, Paul, 60, what percent of the budget are they?
70-ish.
70-ish percent?
In that range.
And of that 70%,
I should say, depending on what you allocate to the school budget. So it could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, trash
so if you
removal,
take,
things like
well,
that.
fine. So you take that math, and then you got labor, and labor is a big chunk of that. And so if I look back, and I know they're negotiating, and I look back now, we're going to go 3.5 on 60, 70% of the budget. Where does that leave the town side? I haven't quite statistically figured it out, but I'm beginning to wonder if we have to have 0% or near zero on the town side to match the school's thing. Now I know we have out-of-district education issues, and I know there's some matching dollars for that, I hope, but yeah, I'm concerned about what is going on with the budget, and I think if I'm elected, I do know, I've seen the budget schedule, I think we have a final shot as a select board as putting the budget out into the warrant. I think select board is sort of the gatekeeper. I think the ultimate responsibility is our legislative body. It's you, the voter. The voters will decide if this budget is valid and credible and affordable for the town. All we can do on the level of town government is to guide and have trust. People should have trust in elected officials to come out and say, this is what we think. And I've been very disappointed over the years to see something come out that's recommended and have it shot down at town meeting. But again, it's our legislative body, it's a democracy, and unfortunately, every 12,000 plus residents of town who are registered voters should be at town meeting to vote.
Okay. So as a resident,
Yep.
okay, while you're still a resident, if
Yep.
you're not on the board,
Yep.
what concerns you the most with the town? And I don't mean, forget about infrastructure, because you talked about it as being a board member, but if you're a resident here in town, as you're driving around, you ride your bike a lot, as you're riding around, what do
Oh,
you think?
it's zoning violations. I'm a planner, what can I say? And I hope everybody out there appreciates that. I think, unfortunately, I'm the tattletale. I think a lot of neighbors won't tattletale on their neighbor. But we do have 2 newbies we've hired. We approved them at fall town meeting to do, they're temporary jobs. They have no benefits, and they're supposed to be out at random times, 24 hours a day, doing this kind of enforcement. I like Long Meadow because if you drive from Enfield into Long Meadow, it's neon. Long Meadow is relatively dark. That's the way we want it. So I'm hip on signs. From a government point of view, I am concerned about things like trash pickup. I watched our leaf collection disappear. That was a benefit. When I first moved to Long Meadow, well, I lived here, but when I bought my house on Long Meadow Street, we had leaf pickup.
Best service in the world.
Best service in the world. And you know what? We're Tree City, USA. And now we have to have everybody drive down or hire somebody to take away their leaves. Okay, that's fine. But trash is next, and then, we have a lot of amenities that could disappear, especially back to the fiscal side of things.
Right.
So yes, I appreciate seeing a police officer who actually waves at me and actually probably knows me. And those little benefits. I like a fire department that can go out and be there in 3 minutes. I did not know till the other day that we have 2 ambulances in town that can actually do minor surgery in the vehicle. So they actually can have an operating room on the way to the hospital. So that's pretty amazing stuff. Our Council on Aging, I went to those meetings, and it's fascinating. I think our adult services are light years ahead of what they were back when, I was in high school. So that's what I see on my bicycle. What I see happy neighbors. Another thing I see is people that smile and say hello to you, which is very, very good. I see a lot of dogs. People like pets in Long Meadow. We might be a dementia-friendly town, but we're a dog-friendly town, too. In fact, I had to wait today for 20 minutes, maybe, at the clerk's office to file a paper for the planning board because everybody in front of me was doing dog licenses.
I got mine today.
Oh,
Nope.
hopefully it wasn't a deadline, Paul. Were you?
No, I'm good. My dog's legit.
Good,
So
okay.
We're registered.
So those are things I see.
Yeah.
And yes, I am on my bicycle all the time. You'll see me around, and I really do enjoy traveling this town. Another benefit is the sidewalks. What town do you know of where I can bike completely or walk safely, pretty much, around the whole entire town?
Yep. And it's quality, the little quality of life issues, when you're talking about budgeting,
Yeah.
the big picture, right? $90
Yep.
million, whatever it is, and $50 million for this, $20 million for that. It's the little things that make the bigger difference in town. Like clearly defined crosswalks, right? Freshly
Yeah.
painted, lights, poles and signs that are in order. They're not
Yeah.
knocked down, they're not
Yeah.
knocked over, lawns that are mowed. And so there's always been that balance when you take a look. When I was my first meeting on the select board, we instituted a 2-tiered water system, rate system, which blew up. And we had to go back and redo it. And because my feeling was you should encourage people to water their lawns because that green lawn adds to the nicety of town, like
Right.
no neon signs and things like that. Has the town, we're still 99 square miles, that hasn't changed. We're 100 miles of roads, that might have changed, here or there. we know we're thickly, you've been on the planning board, you know all that's gone on in the past few years, pretty much built out. I mean, there might be something here or there, but there's no really room for new growth, new establishments.
No.
So we have to kind of protect what we have.
We protect what we have, but again, back to, it's the citizens' decision. We have land in Long Meadow, as you might be or not be aware. Turner Park, for example, is a town-owned property. There's something they call the Water Tower off Academy Road. We still have developable land. I would like to see, I was not keen on the first pass-through of the Christian Science Church on William Street in Redfern. Back because of COVID, the planning board wasn't convinced that the project would be successful because we were seeing vacancies all over our town in retail. Office space was emptying out, which it still is. Probably why a success for the Young Mansion, the Brewer Young Mansion is successful because they have office space in there. So we're here today, you have a home office, you can go and have a meeting there. For example, you're not going downtown anymore to an office tower. So, those are really about it. Long Meadow's built out, and that is not something we can say is going to be a revenue enhancer. We might have another project. We're trying to convert some private property we'd like to encourage to be on the tax rolls. So, again, the Christian Science Church is one. We're looking at an assisted living facility that would like to apply soon to the planning board that would be on Williams Street, and they don't have to pay taxes, they will. And I just heard, which is news to me, that Bay Path College is selling off some of their homes.
Oh, wow.
Which will put them back on the tax rolls in the town
That would be
of Long Meadow.
wonderful, yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yep.
Okay. So, it's funny because I used to, when I was on the select board, I would go to planning board meetings. I'd go to the zoning board hearings.
Which we always like to see. Someone from the select board should always...
So, because it was important to see what was going on, especially some of the issues. And in a lot of those meetings, what I noticed was, planning board and zoning board, there's a law. And there's very little room for negotiation that you have to follow the law, regardless of how the residents feel about it. I know there was one meeting where you were trying to get the developer to add bushes to a development project to protect the homeowners, but you couldn't will them to do that.
No.
You were trying to use good faith to try to get that. You couldn't hold the project up or anything like that. And I just found it was interesting that there's certain committees in town that I think that are like pressure points that if you can survive on there, and I think the school committee's one, I think planning board's one, and zoning board. That if you can survive on those committees and do well on them, that gives you a good base of experience just in terms of how to deal with the law and how to deal with people and how to mix those two things together.
It's true. First thing is to, if you live in town, you show up to town meeting. Select board is a bully pulpit. I think I read something somewhere, what definition, what the bottom line of a select board is, and I still think it's the cheerleader of town. I know it does licensing. Obviously, there's lots of functions that are in the charter and the state law, but that gets back to your point. So the bully pulpit, it's just like the planning board. We can't really enforce somebody to put shrubs in. They usually do that because there's rationale and there's a legitimate reason. It's the rational. It's being rational, not rationale, rational. So that's what you have to be. It's crazy to go out and start to create things that really can't be done or unachievable. People won't, you turn people off. And every board and committee in town knows that. I mean, we've got our Community Preservation Committee, and they got a lot of pressure from a lot of angles for money. We're short on money, so people are looking for projects. So they got to be rational. Zoning Board of Appeals. Yes, they're the appeal board. Our town is 70% what they call non-conforming. So that means mostly everybody's house, and on your house and my house, for example, we're not conforming. So we want to add an addition. We have to get a permit from or variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, rational. Neighbors are allowed to come to these meetings and hearings, and you as a committee, a board, make a decision, well, this is in the best interest of the community. Same with planning. We do that. We were always in the interest of the community. Again, it's actually in our charge to serve the amenities and the best that we can do for the community. So,
Okay. So let me add, I don't have any more questions per se, so, and I just want to let folks know that if there was if the other candidate was here, I would do more of a question and answer thing
Yeah.
and kind of move on from each topic, but since this is, we have just Walter here, and I don't mean just, since Walter's here alone, I just figured a conversational format is a little bit better.
Yeah, it's
So I
fine.
can just kind of see what you're really made of
Yeah.
and so forth. So bottom line,
Yeah.
not bottom line, end of the interview.
Okay.
What do you want to tell folks? Why they should come out on March 7th? It's a Tuesday, March 7th, to vote for you.
Yeah.
First of all, you should be voting, but if you have your
well, first you should remind our audience that there's been some confusion. Some people actually think the election ended with the primary.
Okay.
So
I didn't
that's
realize
the
that.
first concern, folks, is we do need you out again on March 7th. And, my opponent is a good candidate. He's a good person. He's nice. I just want to say, I'm not going to start dwelling on my strengths to the point of crushing people because it's not fair he's not here. But I do say I still come, with experience, knowledge, and dedication. I've been in town my whole life. I've served. I've been a public servant. I really am. Not paid. Have not made a penny on anything I've done in what I call my nighttime job. That's why I think being on select board would be more like a daytime job, because I have time now to drill into the details that are required to be prepared to go to a select board meeting and talk to people. It never hurts to listen, and they will call you, and you will talk to people,
Yeah.
right?
You get stopped at Big Y, everything, yeah.
That's Big Y, yep. That's why there's Big Y in Enfield if you really have to go the other direction. But no, and I get a lot of comments. A lot of people, when we were doing the Young Mansion, that was very contentious. A lot of people misunderstood the scope of the project. And you know what, folks? What I did is we trusted, and back to communication, we trusted the two guys developing them. They were local, they lived in town, and they built trust in us that we could say that project should go forward. And that's the same thing with anything you do on the select board. Listen to people, trust them. And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, the way our charter is written, we have to let the town manager, she is the boss, she's in charge of all the town departments, and she coordinates the budget. She does the work all day. She's on the salary. She gets the big bucks to come prepared to select board meetings and be ready to go. And I think to argue with her on what role the select board has and whether we should hire a crossing guard or something. Yes, we'll hire committees. We'll hire we appoint committees and appoint boards that are under that purview. But I still think you have to have a little trust in the town manager. After 3 years, is it? Is that the contract for the town?
Typically, yeah. I guess,
Typically,
yeah.
3 years. Then you know what? We have the power. And if the residents say to the select board, and we feel something bad, we have that right to not renew a contract. So that is a real power part of the select board, I believe.
Okay. Folks, I want to thank you for watching. Walter, thanks for coming in.
And thanks, Paul, again for having this.
Tuesday, March 7th, at the Community House. If you are watching this, please get your family and friends to vote. It's important. The budget is right around the corner. We'll be voting on the budget at the May town meeting. So who you have on the board is the people who will be voting on putting the budget before you at town meeting. But thank you again for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of The Upside. Have a great day.
And thank you, Paul.